Prior to Christ, there were 8,000 years. In the heart of a little village, an alien ship touches down on our planet. Archaeologists find the ruins of a town and a massive disk covered in hieroglyphs in the same location a few hundred years later. Professor Langford, who arrives at the base with his daughter Catherine, is given the task of studying the artifacts. Many more years pass. Catherine Langford arrives at a gathering of scientists after changing into an elderly woman, where Professor Daniel Jackson, a freak that nobody takes seriously, speaks. Jackson is invited to her car by Catherine, who also offers him a fascinating assignment on ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. When Dr. Jackson gets to the military base, he is shown a disk that was discovered in the past. Jackson creates a transcript just by studying the symbols, which irritates the professor who has spent years trying to decipher the ancient writing. Colonel O'Neill, who is also tasked with working on an unidentified item in case Catherine's theory about a parallel world is true, is impressed by the scientist's work. Jackson works non-stop. A squad led by Colonel O'Neill and his men, together with Professor Jackson, heads to the ring when it is launched by the scientists once more. Professor Jackson pauses briefly at the opening, but as soon as he sticks his face inside, the portal itself carries him to another part of the cosmos. Jack orders the soldiers to proceed to the exit, which takes them through a massive pyramid and out into the desert. Jack orders the soldiers to rapidly take soil samples so they can leave in an hour and get home, but Daniel acknowledges that the gate is broken and that he has no idea how to fix it. The warriors reject the odd scientist as one of their own, and when he leaves, they discard his bag of books. Jackson picks them back up and sees tracks on the sand. In the meantime, O'Neill is covertly building a rocket that, if necessary, should stop an alien invasion. Jackson finds a creature that resembles a large bull after following the trails they leave behind. The interested scientist reaches out to it, but by the time the team discovers it, the professor is unintentionally taken to a small town by the bull when he catches him with a rope. Jackson tries to communicate with the locals, but they do not speak the guest's language, and when they see the pendant around his neck, they fall to their knees. The chief was being brought to them on the same bull when the troops turned to look around. The group travels to the village, where the visitors are treated to the unveiling of an old shield that features the eye of the Egyptian god Ra. A siren's call interrupts the feast unexpectedly. The chief refuses to let the colonel go since a fierce sandstorm is brewing outside the gates as he is ready to return to the pyramid. While the chief makes a sumptuous dinner for the visitors, Jack is more concerned with how they will go home. When the old man notices that the guest is going to urinate in the sand, he immediately interrupts the feast and sends Professor Jackson to his quarters while trying to divert him with a massage and a visit from a young beauty. He lets her stay in his room and even tries to establish some common ground with her, much to the chieftain's and her dismay. Although it is challenging, Jackson is able to learn that the girl is familiar with a symbol that will enable them to get home. The signal is picked up by the remaining soldiers in the pyramid, but O'Neill is no longer in communication with the storm. The boys take up arms and are ready to meet the unexpected visitors at the same time as strange things start happening in the hallway. When someone strange shuts down the military one by one, the soldiers cannot shelter behind columns. O'Neill smokes in silence in his room while explaining what a lighter is to a local youngster, completely unaware of what is happening at the base. Jack yells at the curious youngster for pulling the gun after recalling how his son unintentionally pressed the trigger and lost his life. A buddy of Jackson's named Shoury takes the scholar into a dungeon where he encounters numerous hieroglyphics while hearing his friend accurately pronounce their names. Gets anxious, the camp can no longer be reached, and Jackson has vanished. The colonel enlists the aid of neighborhood youth, and because of them, he is able to locate the professor in the prison. Daniel shares with his friend how he was able to research the myth of the god Ra, who descended to Earth in order to extend his life by assuming a human form. Then, in order to prevent any of his progeny from learning the truth, he prohibited reading and writing. Jack commands everyone to head back to the pyramid since he is sick of the lore and tales. Jack notices that the pyramid has changed shape and appears to be flying through the air as they get closer to the base. He enters armed and discovers that something dreadful has taken place. Again, the ancient creatures eliminate the soldiers, and Jack is barely able to escape with Daniel. The safe is empty, and the lads are encircled as the colonel walks to the rocket to destroy the ring and stop the aliens from accessing their world. When the captives reach the throne room, the creatures kneel in front of the deity Ra, who is sitting on a throne. Shows Jack a rocket and makes a suggestion that he will punish the colonel for trying to end this world. Jack makes an effort to retaliate, but nothing comes out. He collapses to the ground, where the king's guards attempt to kill him. While dealing with the professor, who is wearing his pendant around his neck, the primary antagonist asks him to send the colonel to the dungeon and stop the fight. The boys who accompanied Jack the entire time remained outdoors and looked at the equipment and supplies used by the military. The guys left their job and hurried to aid when they realized the alien ships were going for their hamlet and intended to kill every person there, but it was already too late. Daniel opened his eyes to discover himself in a sarcophagus. The extraterrestrial in a human form admits to the scientist that he enjoys people watching, but in spite of this, he plans to launch a nuclear missile back toward the Earth and enhancing the explosion with a mineral that will make it happen 100 times more powerful. Shaori shares the story of Ra's plans with his village's youngsters after learning of Ra's ambitions, and exhorts them to refuse to continue serving as slaves to the invaders. The square is filled with the entire town. Jackson is given a spear by the executioner, and he is told to annihilate O'Neill and his army. Daniel attacks the king after receiving a signal from Shaori in the crowd. The area becomes chaotic, allowing the squad to flee the alien gunfire. When Ra returns to their realm to destroy the explosive Jack put near the gate, Jack must inform his buddies. Ra now has a different perspective and gets ready to launch an attack to subdue the rowdy men. One of the inmates is publicly executed by the villain as retribution for the guards who allowed the escape. Jackson discovers through Shaori's tribesmen that the girl has deceived to everyone and that she now considers him to be her spouse. When Daniel locates the missing component, he lets his pals know they can leave. To liberate the citizens from the evil monarch and his minions, the group first travels to the city center. The senior wants to stop them out of concern that it will cause his people additional difficulty. But Jackson demonstrates to the chief that there are regular individuals hiding behind the iron masks. Ra tells someone to bring the bomb to the gate after spotting a caravan bringing minerals. Once inside, the slaves boldly remove their hoods, exposing Jack's army that is concealed inside. Because all the military is outside and the bad guys are using planes to attack, Ra decides to send the bomb to Earth right away. Jack, however, demonstrates his superior speed by activating the mechanism and instructing Daniel to go home and break the gate while he stays in this realm and destroys the portal here. Shaori is hurt, so the scientist decides to save his companion by taking her into his arms as Jackson gets ready to take to the air. To treat the girl in a magical sarcophagus, he goes into Ra's elevator. As the portal is being watched, Jack is left to fight with the bad guys alone. One of the local lads dies in the meantime before he can get to safety as a brawl rages outside. Daniel is unable to flee discreetly and is captured by Ra as a result of the bad guy's distraction by soldiers. The professor narrowly escapes with his sweetheart, while also crushing the warrior who was about to kill Jack by summoning a magical elevator at the last second. Jack tries to deactivate the device when he realizes the explosion would occur in less than a minute, but it is unsuccessful. Ra observes the village chief escorting a large crowd to the pyramid. The villain seals his ship and raises it into the air in order to prevent them from foiling his intentions. Jackson devises a strategy after knowing this. He uses an elevator to send a rocket up the ship to the monarch, killing him for good. Following his victory celebration, O'Neill bids farewell to the prehistoric occupants as well as Daniel, who has chosen to remain in this world and create his happiness with Shaori. The professor offers his friend the pendant as a farewell gift to give to Catherine,